The subway car shook violently as it rounded the corner, but nothing could mask the sound piercing through every conversation. Leo's screams echoed off the metal walls like a siren that wouldn't stop. Marcus Vail gripped his 6-month-old son tighter, his expensive navy suit soaked with sweat despite the air conditioning. This wasn't supposed to happen. Marcus commanded billion-dollar boardrooms with confidence, but here he stood helpless, bouncing a screaming baby, while strangers shot angry glares his way. His designer tie hung loose around his neck, and his perfectly styled hair was now disheveled from running his hands through it in frustration. "Come on, Leo. Please," Marcus whispered desperately, trying everything he could think of. He offered the pacifier again, but Leo spit it out with another ear-splitting wail. The rocking motion that usually worked made things worse. Even the bottle was rejected with tiny fists pushing it away. Passengers shifted uncomfortably in their seats. A businessman pulled out his phone and cranked up his music. An elderly woman shook her head and muttered something under her breath about parents these days. A teenager at the back actually covered his ears and moved to another car entirely. Marcus felt his face burn with embarrassment. He'd handled hostile takeovers and million-dollar negotiations without breaking a sweat, but a crying baby had reduced him to a fumbling mess. His hands trembled as he tried different positions, different sounds, different approaches. Nothing worked. Leo's face turned bright red, then purple. His little body arched backward as if trying to escape some invisible torture. The cries weren't just loud anymore. They were desperate, urgent, filled with a kind of pain that made Marcus's chest tight with panic. "What's wrong with him?" Marcus asked himself aloud, his voice cracking. Other passengers pretended not to hear, but he could feel their judgment burning into his back. He was failing at the most basic thing a father should do: comfort his own child. The train pulled into another station, doors sliding open with a mechanical hiss. More people got on, immediately wincing at the sound. Marcus wanted to disappear, to somehow make this nightmare end, but Leo's cries only grew more frantic with each passing minute. Amara Rodriguez sat 3 seats away, her worn beige shirt a stark contrast to the businessman's expensive suit. She'd been watching quietly for the past 10 minutes, her trained eyes picking up details others missed. This wasn't ordinary fussiness. She'd heard thousands of baby cries during her volunteer work at the pediatric ward, and this sound made her stomach clench with recognition. Her fingers tightened around the handles of her canvas tote bag as she leaned forward slightly, studying the baby's behavior. The high pitch of his screams, the way his tiny fist stayed clenched, the arch of his back. Every sign pointed to physical pain, not just discomfort. "He's not just fussy," she finally said, her voice cutting through the noise. "That's a pain cry." Marcus looked up sharply, his eyes red-rimmed with exhaustion and stress. "I've got it under control," he snapped, though his voice cracked with uncertainty. Amara didn't flinch at his defensive tone. She'd dealt with panic parents before, knew that pride often made emergencies worse. "You don't," she said calmly, keeping her eyes steady on his. "You've tried everything but listening." "I'm his father," Marcus said, pulling Leo closer to his chest as if protecting him from her words. "I know my son. Do you?" The question hung in the air between them. Amara's tone wasn't cruel, just direct. "Listen to him," high-pitched, desperate, fists clenched tight. "Something's physically wrong. May I check?" Marcus's jaw tightened. The audacity of this stranger, this woman in cheap clothes who probably didn't even have children of her own, offering to handle his son. "No, thank you," he said firmly, turning away from her. But Leo's screams intensified, reaching a frequency that made several passengers wince and move further away. An older man at the front grumbled loudly, "Somebody shut that kid up before I lose my mind." Amara ignored the comment and leaned closer to Marcus, lowering her voice so only he could hear. "He's in pain. Real pain. I've seen this before during my time at the children's hospital." Marcus started to respond with another dismissal, but something in her tone stopped him. There was no judgment in her voice, no condescension, just certainty born from experience he clearly didn't have. "What do you think it is then?" Marcus asked through gritted teeth, his pride warring with his desperation. Leo's face had turned an alarming shade of purple, and sweat beaded on the baby's tiny forehead despite the cool air. Amara shifted forward on her seat, speaking quietly but urgently. It could be a hair tourniquet. Sometimes a strand of hair or thread wraps around a baby's toe or finger. It cuts off circulation and burns like fire. Parents miss it all the time because they don't know to look. Marcus blinked at her, processing her words. A hair. Yes. It hurts like nothing else, and it's nearly invisible unless you know what to search for. If I'm wrong, you'll know in seconds. If I'm right and you keep ignoring it. She let the silence finish her sentence, the implication hanging heavy between them. The train lurched into the next station with a screech of brakes. More passengers crowded in, immediately recoiling from Leo's piercing cries. Marcus felt their stares like physical weight, their whispered comments burning his ears. His son reached out suddenly, tiny arms stretching toward Amara, as if sensing her knowledge. "Let me help him," she pressed, extending her hands with steady confidence. "Please." Every instinct screamed at Marcus not to trust a stranger, especially here, surrounded by watching eyes. But Leo's desperate sobs finally broke through his stubborn pride. His child was suffering, and he was powerless to stop it. If anything happens to him. Marcus started. "I'm not taking him," Amara interrupted gently. "I'm helping him while you hold him. Show me his feet." With trembling fingers, Marcus pulled off Leo's tiny gray sock. His breath caught in his throat when he saw the smallest toe, red, swollen, with a dark line cutting deep into the delicate skin. "There," Amara pointed, her voice filled with sad validation. "That's what's been torturing him." Marcus's throat went completely dry. "Oh my God, how did I not see this?" Amara was already reaching into her bag, pulling out a Metro card and hand sanitizer. A woman across the aisle silently offered her own bottle of sanitizer without being asked. Most parents don't know to look. The hair is thinner than thread, almost invisible, but it tightens like a noose as the baby moves. She cleaned the Metro card's edge carefully, then positioned it under the nearly invisible strand with surgical precision. "Keep him steady," Amara instructed, her voice calm despite the pressure. "He needs you to stay calm too." Marcus tried to control his breathing, holding Leo's trembling body firmly against his chest. "It's okay, buddy. Daddy's here. Just one more second." His voice shook, but he forced himself to sound reassuring. Amara hummed softly as she worked, a low, rhythmic sound that seemed to penetrate Leo's panic. Marcus watched in amazement as she maneuvered the card's thin edge under the hair with the skill of a surgeon. Her movements were precise, practiced, completely confident. She pulled a pair of small tweezers from her bag, the kind used for splinters, and carefully gripped the loosened strand. "Almost there, little one," she whispered to Leo, who seemed to sense the impending relief. With one gentle motion, she lifted the hair away completely. The effect was instantaneous and miraculous. Leo's toe flushed pink as circulation returned, and his screams collapsed into shaky hiccups. His tiny fists unclenched for the first time in an hour. But what happened next shattered Marcus completely. Leo didn't reach for his father. Instead, his small arms stretched desperately toward Amara, seeking comfort from the woman who had saved him from agony. Marcus froze, watching his son choose a stranger over him. His pride stung, but his relief was overwhelming. He shifted carefully, allowing Amara to slide her arms under Leo's small body. She held him against her beige shirt, rocking gently while continuing that soft, calming hum. Leo's sobs dissolved into quiet whimpers, his face pressed against her shoulder. His small hand gripped her collar as if she were his lifeline, his source of safety in a world that had been nothing but pain. The entire subway car fell silent except for the rhythmic clacking of wheels on track. Passengers who had been annoyed and judgmental now watched in stunned admiration. A few pulled out phones to capture the touching scene of this unlikely savior. Marcus found his own breath shaking as he watched his son finally peaceful, finally safe. For the first time all day, Leo was completely calm. And it wasn't his father who had made it happen. "See," Amara whispered, gently rubbing Leo's back. "He just needed someone steady." Marcus swallowed hard, his voice barely audible above the train's rumble. "I couldn't even help my own son." "You love him," Amara said firmly, meeting his eyes while still cradling the now peaceful baby. "That's why you finally asked for help, even though it hurt your pride." Leo gave a tiny, contented sigh. His cheeks still damp, but his breathing finally even. The sound of relief was so profound that several passengers smiled despite themselves. One elderly woman approached as the train slowed and whispered to Amara, "You saved that baby's life," before stepping onto the platform. As the doors closed and the train moved on, Marcus leaned forward. "Come with me. I want a doctor to check him immediately. Make sure there's no lasting damage." Amara's face tightened with conflict. "I can't. I'll miss my shift at work." "I'll cover whatever you lose," Marcus said quickly. "Please. I need to be absolutely sure he's okay." At the urgent care clinic, a pediatrician confirmed Amara's diagnosis with professional admiration. If that hair had stayed wrapped much longer, it could have permanently damaged circulation. "You did exactly the right thing," he told her while examining Leo's now pink toe. Marcus watched in silence as Leo sat contentedly on Amara's lap, chewing her finger and babbling happily. The same child who had screamed in his arms now trusted this stranger completely. Outside the clinic, Marcus finally asked the question burning in his mind. "How did you know what to look for?" "I have volunteered at a pediatric ward for 3 years," Amara replied simply. "A nurse taught me about hair tourniquets. She said it's the little things that can kill, and people don't listen until it's too late." Marcus studied her weathered hands, her tired eyes, her worn clothes. "You're not a nurse now." She shook her head. "I clean apartments. School's expensive, and life doesn't wait for dreams." The weight of her words hit him like a physical blow. He signed million-dollar deals over lunch, yet this woman had no certainty about tomorrow. And still, she had been the one to save his son. "You shouldn't be scrubbing floors when you can save lives," Marcus said finally. "Work with me. I'll fund a program teaching parents to recognize emergencies before it's too late. Real work, real salary, benefits." Amara lifted her chin proudly. "Don't pity me. If you want my help, it has to be legitimate work, not charity." "It's not charity," Marcus said urgently. "You know more about infant care than anyone I've met. Help me build something that matters." She studied his face carefully, searching for hidden motives. All she found was a humbled father desperate to do right by his son. "If it's real and steady, I'll do it." As they parted ways, Marcus knew his entire world had shifted. Money meant nothing when your child suffered, but knowledge freely given could save everything.